Bills Mafia. Two stories dominating the conversation today, and both of them deserve your full attention. First, Brandin Cooks apparently wants to come back to Buffalo, and there is legitimate mutual interest from both sides with training camp less than 3 weeks away. Second, ESPN's tight end rankings are out, and Dalton Kincaid not making the top 10 is the kind of disrespect that should fuel this entire fan base heading into what looks like a genuinely dangerous Bills season. Start with Cooks, because the Tim Graham reporting from The Athletic gives this more substance than a typical off-season rumor. Cooks turns 33 in September, is still a free agent, has been working in the dark preparing for the season according to those around him, and has made it explicitly clear that Buffalo is where he wants to be. The quote says it all. He loves going to training camp, and that is where you build the callus, and both sides are figuring things out. Brandon Beane confirmed in March that the team had stayed in contact with Cooks' camp. Joe Brady has spoken with him recently. The mutual interest is real. The motivation behind Cooks wanting to return is deeply human and genuinely compelling. That play against Denver where Jaquan McMillan ripped the football away from him, which most Bills fans and most objective observers still believe was a legal catch that should have stood, has been living rent-free in his head for 6 months. He watched it over and over for a week straight. He talked about the silence on the plane ride home and Sean McDermott calling the booth to express his feelings about the officiating. Cooks specifically said his response to that moment is to get back on the field and make sure next time it is a catch and a run to the end zone, leaving it in nobody else's hands. That is a player who has unfinished business with this team and this city. Was Cooks good enough to justify bringing back? The honest answer is yes. And the comparison to what else is available on this roster makes the case even more clearly. By the stretch run of last season, he was the most trusted boundary receiver on this team. Week 17 against the Eagles, 4 catches for 100 yards. Wild card against Jacksonville, 3 grabs for 58 yards, averaging 19 yards per reception. He is better than Josh Palmer based on what both players have shown, and if you polled 100 NFL fans, that question probably gets you 70 agreeing. He is better than Mecole Hardman. The contract conversation is also simple. Tim Graham specifically noted any deal would be team-friendly, which is another way of saying league minimum or close to it. Getting a receiver with Cooks' experience, his knowledge of what this offense needs, and his personal motivation to prove himself for essentially the minimum is straightforward value for a Bills team that needs weapons around Josh Allen. The timeline matters here. Cooks wants to be in training camp rather than getting picked up mid-season like last year. That means if this happens, it needs to happen in the next 2.5 weeks. Given that Beane has been maintaining contact and Brady has been talking with him directly, the organizational infrastructure for this deal to get done quickly is clearly in place. Now to the Dalton Kincaid disrespect, because not including him in the top 10 tight ends is genuinely indefensible when you look at the actual efficiency numbers. Brock Bowers at 1 and Trey McBride at 2, no argument whatsoever. Those are the 2 best tight ends in football right now. But George Kittle at 3 and Sam Laporta at 4, while Kincaid is not even on the list? Kyle Pitts making the top 10 because he got paid $17 million a year? The corpses of Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce appearing above a player who, when healthy, statistically dominated the position? Here are the actual numbers from last season when Kincaid was on the field. First among all tight ends in yards per route run. First in targets per route run. First in yards per target. First in first downs per route run. The highest passer rating when targeted of any tight end in the entire NFL. When Kincaid was in the lineup, the Bills' completion percentage went up by more than 6%. Their yards per game increased significantly. Their touchdown-to-interception ratio improved. Their overall passer rating went up substantially. And they won more games in a 12-game sample with him than they lost in a 5-game sample without him. Tucker Kraft making this list is particularly baffling. Tucker Kraft is essentially what Dalton Kincaid would look like with a full healthy season, and Kraft himself missed time with a season-ending injury last year. The anonymous NFC executive quote is actually the most reasonable thing in this entire rankings exercise. A very gifted athlete who has not put it all together yet. But that is probably due to injury, and he absolutely can and is expected to. That is the correct evaluation. Kincaid has not put it all together because his PCL situation has robbed him of full availability and full explosiveness. He elected not to have surgery and is reported being back to 100%. If that is true, and if he plays 15-plus games this season, the tight end rankings conversation looks completely different by December. The targets heading into 2026 are clear. 15 or more games played, that is the foundational requirement. 800 or more receiving yards, Tyler Warren put up 800-plus as a rookie, and Kincaid has the talent to match or exceed that in a full season as the focal point of this offense. 7 or more touchdowns, Allen was constantly looking his way in the red zone when he was available, and that connection in scoring situations is real and repeatable. And when the playoffs arrive, this is a player who needs to show up on the biggest stages in a way that erases some difficult recent memories. Fill in the blank in the comments. Dalton Kincaid is the blank best tight end in the NFL. Drop your answer and let Bills Mafia be heard. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and as always, let us go Buffalo.